Hi, I am Dimitri Khalezov, and today is 10 of September 2024. In this video, as I promised, I will try to answer some questions related to 9/11 events. First of all, I would have to say very sorry that I didn't publish videos on my English channel too often, because I was very busy with my Russian YouTube channel trying to promote the truth about 9/11 on the Russian speaking world. And I had a certain success with it, but my being busy with the Russian channel left me with very little chance to do anything on English channel, unfortunately. So I would like to apologize for it. But from now on, I will try from time to time make some videos in English channel of mine as well. Also, you know, it is very difficult for me to switch between the Russian and English languages because it's a bit really complicated. When I often speak in English is one thing, but when I often speak in Russian, and English is not my native language, as you probably know, it's really very hard for me to switch between the two languages, but I will try my best. Anyway, many people, most of whom are paid shills, working for the US government and for other type of forces who stood behind the 9/11 perpetration, asked me a lot of questions which in their opinion should discredit me, undermine my credibility, and to allow the paid shills to, how they dream of it, debunk what they call my theory about the nuclear demolition of the World Trade Center. So on both of my Telegram channels, because I have Telegram channels, at the very end of this video I will include a page with all links to my different websites and channels, so you will see it. So I have two Telegram channels, one in English and one in Russian, and the paid shills are heavily present in both of my Telegram channels. And usually I do not ban the shills despite knowing them, because I just believe I can answer their questions, so it's not a big deal for me. And those questions that were asked for me in Russian language I already answered, and I will leave a link under this video to my Russian channel where I answered the questions of paid shills in Russian. And most of these questions actually were translated from English to Russian and so answered. But here I will try to answer them right away in English, as much as my poor English allows so. Hope you will forgive me for my poor English, because you know that I am not native English speaker. I repeat myself, the majority of the questions that you will hear now, along with my answer, are not from genuine people. Majority of them are from paid shills. And the questions are taken from the handbooks of the paid shills that are distributed among the factories of those paid shills. But some of them could be from genuine people as well, but very little of them, because the genuine people actually do not need to ask any such questions, because once they saw my original video with my explanation on 9/11 that was published back almost 15 years ago, they were satisfied immediately and they have no more questions. But as you see, some of them are still trying to discredit me by asking this. They believe that I will not be able to answer, but as you will see, I will answer. So the question number one, the paid shill who has the nickname W, only one letter. He is present in both of my Telegram channels, in Russian and in English one. So he speaks both Russian and English. But here he asks a question in English. The question: how can the treaty between US and USSR about peaceful nukes be implemented when it wasn't signed on the date of the construction? Question mark. Construction of the World Trade Center began on August 5, 1966. For 2 years it was on the street level. WTC was erected in 1973. The end of the question. So I remind you that the so-called Peaceful Nuclear Explosions Treaty was signed between the United States and USSR in somewhere in the 70s. I can't remember which year exactly, 73 or 76, something like that. So the page shills asked this question, trying to catch me, supposedly lying, that the treaty on peaceful nuclear explosions was signed in the early 70s, while the construction of the World Trade Center began in 1966. I can even add to this. The nuclear demolition project of the would-be World Trade Center must have been approved even before that, probably a year before that, or maybe even 2 years before that. So you can add more 2 years, so it could be 1964 or 1965 when the actual nuclear demolition project was approved. But the problem is that it has nothing to do with the treaty, because the treaty is the response of increasing number of peaceful nuclear explosions. So just imagine that before signing the Peaceful Nuclear Explosions Treaty, both United States and the Soviet Union conducted a lot of nuclear explosions for industrial reasons, for peaceful reasons, not related to the military. And the explosions become too many that it probably could jeopardize the nuclear security, because some of the states, some of the would-be signatory of the treaty, be it USSR or United States, might use peaceful nuclear explosions in order to hide the military purposes. Let's say that they might make a nuclear tests for the military, but pass it for the peaceful nuclear explosions, or they can make some other tricks. So in order to avoid such tricks, and in order to somehow limit the yield of peaceful nuclear explosions and other aspects of them, the United States and the Soviet Union decided to sign the treaty that would somehow put things in order. And this was signed in the early 70s. I can't remember which year exactly, 73 or 76, something like that. You can find that in the internet if you are interested. So the page shills are trying to ask me how it is related to, and how it can be that the nuclear demolition of the Twin Towers was implemented a few years earlier than the treaty. So that is the point, that they are not related at all. The nuclear demolition idea of the Twin Towers is in no way related to the treaty. So it just stood on its own. So the treaty come later, and according to this treaty, something might have been limited on, or some other limitation might have been imposed. Let's say that the obligation to inform another party of the treaty of such a thing. But they are not directly related. So you were not able to catch me lying with this point. I hope I answer your question. Next question. User Fred asks, what do you think about direct energy as formulated by Judy Wood in her book about 9/11? Question mark. I think that she is a dangerous liar hired by the US government, who pay her generously to spread disinformation about 9/11 in order to distract the people attention from the nuclear demolition of the World Trade Center. So my attitude towards Judy Wood was always the same. It was the same 10 years ago and 12 years ago, and it remains the same. She is a liar, and she is a paid shill hired by the US government. So the so-called direct energy from space does not exist, and it could not exist. And this is just disinformation intended to distract people's attention from the nuclear nature of the demolition of the Twin Towers from Ground Zero name, and particularly from the death of more than 90,000 of gullible responders who were sent by the US government to work in Ground Zero. Next question. Again, W, that is the page shill, asks, give please an article of the law that obliges to provide a mandatory demolition system before construction of buildings. Okay, I don't have this law, and I don't have an obligation to give you this law. And I remind you about the history, how it was with me and with my claims. In 2007, my original explanations of the nuclear demolition of the Twin Towers did not include the claim about the law. I simply didn't know about it. So my original information about the nuclear demolition of the World Trade Center was very simple at that time. I mean, in 2007, the original edition of it. It was simply stated that I am Mr. Dimitri Khalezov, a former military officer who used to serve in a 12th Chief Directorate of the Soviet military, particularly in the part of it responsible for the nuclear intelligence, known as a Special Control Service. That is the organization that detects nuclear explosions and is partly responsible for implementation of the Peaceful Nuclear Explosions Treaty between the United States and Soviet Union. And my claim was that during my service in this organization, particularly at the end of the 80s, that means more than 12 years, at least more than 11 years before 9/11 perpetration, it came to my knowledge that under the two twin towers of the World Trade Center in New York, there was a so-called nuclear demolition scheme. That was the part of the building. And that's it. I did not know anything more than that. And I never claimed anything else. So, once I published this initial information, people started to contact me because there were a lot of people in America who were interested very much in my claims. So some of them were architects, some of them were engineers, some of them were even people who knew about the nuclear demolition schemes, because from them I learned also that there was a nuke under the demolition nuke under the United Nations building in New York, and also under the Sears Tower in Chicago. And further on, later, I also learned that there were more, actually, nuclear charges, some under the Japanese skyscrapers, and even under the Petronas towers in capital of Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur, and also in some Arabic countries. I learned quite a lot from these kind of people. So my second edition was greatly upgraded with the new information. But I never claimed that I ever saw any such law. I just honestly told that after the publication of the initial version of my claims, that I was the officer from the Soviet Special Control Service, who yet in the end of the 80s already knew about the existence of the nuclear demolition scheme of the Twin Towers. And the rest of it was just the response of those who read the first edition of my book. Okay? So, I have never seen any such documents, and I just repeat what new information I obtained from some concerned Americans. That's it. And I have no obligation to show you any such documents because I have never seen them myself. I just believe the American engineers and architects who contacted me. Next question. User Martin asks, nice to hear from you. How can the Nordic race establish world dominance again and defeat the Jew? The question mark. Look, I suggest we keep this question for some other video, because this one is about 9/11. So I will skip this question, and you please remind me later about it. Maybe we will just make another video about politics, about things like that. So we will talk about this then. But by the way, I have to remind you that I'm by no means an anti-Semite, okay? But I can discuss that things, no problem. Next question. Troy Meyer, or Troy Meyer, I'm not sure how to properly pronounce that surname. Damn, we got a special one here. Oh, he just greets me of my appearing in my Telegram channel and collecting these questions. Ike, user Ike asks, what do you do these days and how do you make money? Question mark. Well, as before, I sometimes make money from helping other people in the court, such as like helping them to defend themselves in criminal cases. Sometimes also helping them to do civil cases. And also I get some money from grateful viewers and listeners of my YouTube channels and readers of my book. It's not much, but I'm somehow able to survive with that income. Also, I told you that for the last more than 2 years already, I opened my Russian YouTube channel and I'm very active in it. And I also get some kind of donations from there, some support money. It's not much, but it allows me to survive somehow. Most of the time I spend on my Russian YouTube channels, but I probably will spend more time on my English channel too. Next question. Andrew Tierno. I have to remind everyone who this man is. Andrew Tierno was formerly a person very friendly with me. He supported wholeheartedly my explanations about 9/11. And he was really active, and he used to write a lot of letters to various American organizations, American officials, and other officials around the world. And I believe that his activity was noticed by someone and he was bought over. So what happened with him for the last 3 months, it looks like he was converted to a paid shill, or at least a hater of mine, for some not so clear reason. So the only reasonable explanation that I see that he was really too much active and he crossed the way of some serious guys in America who bought him over, probably offered him a deal which he didn't refuse. So all questions from Andrew Tierno, they are actually the most, difficult question, as so he believes. Very similar to the questions of paid shills. Okay, so the first group of his questions. Andrew Tierno. can I ask you how you learned about the emergency nuclear detonation system during your military service? Question mark. He mean demolition probably, no, but he wrote detonation. Did you know this by chance, or was every officer at your post required to know this? Question mark. Huh. You see, this question actually is intended to reveal certain secrets that will greatly, how to say, improve position of the American officials. Because if I answer to this question honestly, then the American officials will clarify some points that now they are hesitating, because they are not quite sure where I learned it, you know, because you have to understand one thing. I am not talking to Andrew, I'm talking to general public now. For them, it is very big problem that there is a certain man, I mean me, Dimitri, who talks about this and who in the same time has all confirmation that he indeed served in the Soviet Special Control Service, which is a part of the 12th Chief Directorate of the Soviet military. But they want to know more about it. How I learn it? Who else know that? And once they learn it, the picture for them will be very clear. The problem is that I don't want to make this picture clear for them. I want it to remain unclear. It doesn't mean that I don't want to some person like Andrew Tierne personally know it. If he was still friend with me, I can probably tell him secretly by private discussions how I learned it. But if I do this publicly, I will automatically enlighten the American officials about it, and I don't want to do that. So I'm sorry, I don't want to answer this question just because I don't want to clarify this particular picture to the American officials. I want them to remain unclear about it. And also you have to understand one thing, that the American officials have, let's say, levers to pressure the Russian government so that no one else from this organization will ever come up with the same confirmation that I did. So this knowledge will just, make their life easier. So I don't want them to make their life easier. So I will not answer this question. He continues. Who can I ask from the Soviet Union's 12th Chief Directorate who can confirm the nuclear demolition scheme of the World Trade Center? Question mark. The same. If I tell you that, I will make the life of American officials much easier, but I don't want to make their life easier, so I will not answer this question. But basically, in general, you can ask a lot of people there, but you have to understand that all of these people are under control of the Russian government. And the Russian government has the agreement with the US government that they will never speak about this kind of thing and will never allow their officials to speak about this thing. So all those people who serve in the Russian 12th Chief Directorate, even they know about this, they will not tell it to you because they have a non-disclosure contract which obliges them not to talk about this. So they will probably tell you, oh, we never know anything, just something like that. But anyway, I don't want to answer this question just not to make the life of American officials easier. I want it to remain difficult. The next question. Troy Meyer asks, why did you never try to go to New York with a Geiger counter and prove your theory? Question mark. Very nice question. The problem is that I don't care about proving my so-called theory, because this is not a theory, this is my statement. I claim that I, Dimitri Khalezov, being born in 1965, joined the Russian military in 1982, and from 1987 I used to serve as a commissioned officer, a lieutenant, then senior lieutenant, at the 12th Chief Directorate, particularly in its bigger department that was called the Soviet Special Control Service, which is organization tasked with detection of nuclear explosions and, to a certain extent, with controlling of the observing the treaties, such as Peaceful Nuclear Explosion Treaty and other treaties limiting nuclear explosions. And while being in this service and being also at the premises of the building of the Special Control Service, I learned that under Twin Towers of World Trade Center in New York, there was a so-called special emergency nuclear demolition scheme based on underground nuclear charges of high yield, without details. And this I used to know at the end of the 80s. And this is not theory, that is my statement. And I'm not going to prove it. I just state it, and if you don't like it, just it's your problem, it's not my problem. I'm not going to prove to you anything. I not feel even obliged to do so. Actually, the decent people have to be believed on word, because when you go to the court, the judge believes you. The judge doesn't order to torture you as used to be formerly with the slaves in the court, because the judge thinks that you are human, and as long as you are testifying as a witnesses, the court has to take your testimony as is. The court believes words. So, if the court believes you without torturing you like a slave, you should believe me also. I say so, that means it's not a theory, it's a statement. Why I have to go to New York with a Geiger counter? I just don't care about it. So if you want to go, just go. But it's too late, actually. You should have done it like in 2002 or 2003, the latest. Next question. Troy Mayer again. According to Edward Teller, there is no such thing as a shock wave that could pulverize a building. Not in a sense that it is invisible at least. What you proposed, that the towers were pulverized, would be visible from the outside and basically require a nuke directly in the building. Furthermore, not even the windows shattered, so how would you justify an underground explosion? Question mark. Very simple. When I served in the Soviet military at the end of the 80s, it came to my knowledge that under the Twin Towers there were two nuclear devices intended for the emergency demolition. And that was more than 10 years before 9/11. So, armed with this prior knowledge, looking at the way the Twin Towers were demolished or collapsed, and looking at the name that was immediately ascribed to the place of the collapse of the Twin Towers, that was, to remind you, Ground Zero, I don't need to justify anything. So I had the knowledge, so I knew for sure that under the Twin Towers were nuclear devices intended for their demolition. I see that very strange collapse of the Twin Towers that could not be explained by any reasonable explanation from the point of physics. And I see the name Ground Zero, and Ground Zero, just to remind you, it means a hypocenter of a nuclear explosion or its projection onto the Earth's surface. There's no other meaning of Ground Zero, because the American government would order to to make new definitions of ground zero in newer English dictionaries only after the year 2003. So by 2001, the only definition of ground zero was the military definition or the civil defense definition. That means hypocenter of a nuclear explosion or its projection. The only other usage of words ground zero was the name of the cafe at the middle of Pentagon, as you probably know, because a cafeteria at the middle of Pentagon was also named ground zero. That was because it was expected that one of the Soviet nuclear warheads, in case of the war between the United States and the Soviet Union, would strike exactly at the middle of the Pentagon, making it ground zero. That's why the cafeteria that was located at the middle of Pentagon was in advance mockingly named ground zero cafe. So that was only the two meaning of ground zero before 9/11. So once I see that the place is called ground zero, coupled with my prior knowledge that under the Twin Towers there were nuclear demolition devices, which I learned from the Soviet Special Control Service during my military service at the end of the 80s, allows me to understand that the towers were demolished by the nuclear explosions. That's why they are called ground zero. And I don't need to go into any physical explanations why windows were not shattered, whether the towers were pulverized or not, whether there was a shock wave or not shock wave. I simply don't care about it. So I have enough knowledge to understand it right away, based on my prior knowledge about the nukes under the buildings and based on the ground zero name. That's it. So I simply have no, no obligation to go into the details that you mentioned. And to remind you, a part of what I said, that the underground nuclear explosion do not produce any shock wave. So that means the person who told you this is a liar. He just lied to you. The underground nuclear explosion produce only a compression wave, which could be called like a crushing wave. But I think in the American nuclear terminology they call it compression wave. Nobody call it blast wave or shock wave. It's just this is just inventions of the freaks who don't understand anything about the nuclear explosions. Next question. Troy Meyer again. As far as I know, you are a convicted criminal and were held in a prison. I would like to know what exactly you did and how you ended up in this situation. I think it's none of your business, so I don't want to entertain you. So I skip this question. Not just because I don't want to answer, I just don't want to entertain the paid shills like you. The next question. Troy Meyer again. Do you really believe that this fat Russian looking guy is Mike Harari? Question mark. Yes, I'm sure about it. He continues. Although Harari is a public person, no, it's not true. Harari is not a public person. He is quite a secretive person, and in fact, at the request of the Israeli government, after Panama invasion, all public photographs of Mike Harari were removed everywhere in internet, including in cache. So you can't call him public. He continues. Although Harari is a public person, looks completely different, and you didn't provide even a hint of evidence that your claim is actually true, question mark, because I don't bother. I just say that the man that I met in Bangkok and with whom I have a celebratory breakfast on 12th of September 2001 is Mike Harari, the deputy chief of Israeli Mossad. And I provide his photograph and some other details. And I'm not going to prove you anything more than that. If you want to believe, you believe. If you don't want to believe, I don't care. Next question. Andrew Tierna, my former friend turned my enemy. How come you, the picture of Mike Harari in your book and the picture of Mike Harari on the internet are different? Question mark. Simply, it is very simple to explain. Because after Panama invasion, where Mike Harari was one of the victims of the US government, and he escaped, and he was put on international search warrant by the US government, as far as I know, at least officially. At least officially. Israeli government officially requested all news agency, all internet providers, or whatever, whoever could possess photos of Mike Harari, newspapers, magazines, websites, TV channels, whatever, to surrender all of them to the state of Israel and to remove them from public circulation, including cache in the internet. And it was so done. So by the year like 2003, 2004, 2005, you cannot find any photograph of Mike Harari in the internet. That's absolutely no way. So you can't compare photographs provided by me with nothing. You must have something for comparison, but you don't have anything. So, and after that, I published my book with his photographs. The situation became to look dangerous for Israeli government. So they published on the internet, in the clever way, photographs of some differently looking guy, claiming that this is Mike Harari. So that comparison with my photographs from my book and the photographs which they claim Mike Harari would cast doubt on what I say and consequently on the rest of the things I claim, especially in regard to the nuclear demolition of the World Trade Center. It's just a trick to undermine my credibility. So very simple. He continues. Why is there no evidence on the internet of Mike Harari ever been in Thailand? Question mark. First of all, that Mike Harari is a secretive person and he doesn't need to leave such evidence, especially on the internet. That is first thing. The second thing, that you are lying, because in fact there is at least two pieces of information I was myself able to find on the internet, like in 2006 probably, maybe 2005, that Mike Harari was indeed in Thailand. So that means you are just lying. You include lie in your question. The third part of his question. Who can I contact who will confirm that you actually met the infamous Mike Harari? Question mark. I don't know. I don't know anyone you can contact. Actually, there were two people who met him together with me, but unfortunately, these people are dead now. So, but even though they were alive, I will not give you their name anyway, because I don't care. So the problem is that you are asking me a question in a way that could be translated to the human language as follows. Dimitri, I don't believe you. You are a liar. And unless you provide me a proof that you are not a liar, I will not believe you. So my answer is very simple. I don't care. If you don't want to believe me, don't believe. I simply don't care. Next question. Troy Mayer asks, you stated in an interview with Armin that in order to not be a slave, you have to contact your prime minister and give back your passport. Or I will stop here. No, this is a lie. Because in reality, in order to surrender your slavery, I don't know how to say that in English, your state of being a slave, you have to contact not the prime minister, because the prime minister does not represent the sovereignty of the state. The one who owns you is a state. I mean, as a slave, you are owned by a sovereign state. And the one who represents the sovereignty of the state is not the prime minister, that is the president of the state or the king, in case of it is available. So you have to contact the head of state, who is the sovereign. Even your country is such country where the president has no political power at all, such as Germany, India, or Israel, where president is just nobody, or Singapore, where the prime minister is everything but the president is nobody. Even in these countries, the president is higher than the prime minister. Even he has no political power. He is the one who holds the sovereignty of the state and who physically represents the sovereignty. So you have to contact the president in any case, not the prime minister, just not to make this mistake. And you have to give back not your passport, because the passport is just a piece of paper. It doesn't mean anything. You don't need even to give it back. You can just throw it in the garbage if you want, or you can burn it. But it will not change your status of a slave. So not to be a slave anymore. It's not enough to surrender the piece of paper. You have to make a petition to the head of your state saying that you don't want to be a so-called citizen of this state anymore. And if the head of state accepts your petition and releases you from the so-called citizenship without you getting a citizenship of another sovereign, yes, then you can call yourself relieved from slavery, and it has nothing to do with the passport. And he continues, what exactly is that supposed to accomplish? If you contact the prime minister and give him your passport, nothing, it will not change anything at all. Do you have any idea how basic laws of society work? Question mark. Of course. That's exactly what my most videos on my Russian channel are about. I mostly talk answering people's questions in regard to sociology, meaning that how justice works, how the slave ownership works, what is the state, who owns the state, what is the sovereignty, what's the passport, how to become a free man, and so on. What's the difference between free tribe and the tribe that was enslaved by the government, and many other things of this kind. So I understand it quite well. But I have never done videos about this in English, because mostly I do that in Russian. But if you want, we can make a video in English also. Just give me a list of questions that you want to ask me in this regard. I will try to answer. He continues. What is your obsession with the laws of Moses and the Masons? Question mark. I don't have any obsession at all. How can you claim to be a free man when you are actually in prison and need money like everyone else? Question mark. It's none of your business what I claim. Because sometimes people just accuse me of being the same slave as they are. So I just have to defend myself by explaining that I'm not a slave. But there's nothing more than that. I don't need to explain to you any further, because it's none of your business. If you have a question about the sociology and you want my explanation, yes, I can answer you. But your question, it seems like a personal attack, and I just don't feel obliged to answer. It's none of your business. Simply. Of course I need the money, because everybody needs money. Free men also need money. A king also needs money. Emperor also needs money. So I also need money, like anyone else, because I need to pay for my expenses, for my food, for my dress, even for the internet connection that I'm going to use to publish this video. So simply. It's nothing to do with the state of free man or slave. Next question. Troy Mayer asks, you claim in every video, in case I'm not back to 1 or 12 days, you know what to do. What exactly those people have to do in case you die? This was my system of my protection from Thai police, and to a certain extent maybe from some other people who may ask Thai police to do something wrong to me. But that is again none of your business. That's only my close friends know what to do. So it's not for everyone to know. Next question. User W asks, the page shill who was asking the first question. Did you ever saw the actual technical documents of the World Trade Center with all its underground structure? Question mark. Not original ones, because original blueprints I have never seen, but those parts that were published on the internet, those, not all of them again, but those I managed to find, yes, I saw them. He continues, did you ever wanted to see them? Question mark. Why not? If I have a chance, I would like to see them, of course. But I don't think that I would ever have this chance. Troy Mayer again. You claim there was a law that basically required nukes to be installed in skyscrapers. No, you are lying. You include lie in your question, and that is called lying. So that means I can call you a liar for formulating question in such a manner, because I never say though. I said that once I published the first edition of my claims about the nuclear demolition of the World Trade Center, I didn't know that. But I was immediately contacted by quite a few American people concerned with this and shocked with my explanation. And some of them were architects and engineers who revealed to me that in America there was a law that requires a developer who plan to erect a skyscraper to submit to a Department of Building a nuclear, not necessarily nuclear, just satisfactory demolition idea of the would-be structure. And the nuclear one, that was only with the Twin Towers, because the Twin Towers were first buildings in the world that were made completely from metal without using any concrete or bricks. So they can't be demolished by any conventional means. But it doesn't mean that the law claims that the nukes must be particularly used. The conventional explosives could be used for, but not in case of the Twin Towers, but I mean in case of the law. So when you next time formulate your questions, please don't make them in a way that makes you a liar. He continues. Please cite the exact law! Exclamation mark. I have never seen that law. As I told you, I learned about this law from the American people who contacted me after the first edition of my claims about the nuclear demolition was published. But I have never seen these laws by myself. He continues. Also, does this mean every skyscraper in the US has a nuke installed in them? Question mark. No, it doesn't mean so. As far as I know, the nukes were installed in the Sears Tower in Chicago. Probably in some buildings in Los Angeles, but I'm not sure which one. Liberty Building or Library Building or something like that. And I heard also that there was a nuke under the building of the United Nations. And that particularly the last one I know in more detail, because I was talking to a woman who worked in that building and who heard that from her husband and also from some security chief of that United Nations building. And at one point he even showed her the room where he claimed the nuke was kept for the demolishing of the United Nations building. That's the most details I heard about the United Nations buildings. But of course, I heard also about the Sears Tower. But for example, Empire State Building didn't have any nuke installed, because it was just the old building and made from bricks and the concrete, so it could be demolished by conventional means. And if you remember the timetable of 9/11, immediately after the demolition of the Twin Tower, the first Twin Towers, evacuated were Sears Tower in Chicago and United Nations building in New York, but not the Empire State Building. You can review the timeline of the 9/11 events and you will find the confirmation of it. Andrew Tierna, my former friend, turned enemy. Another question is the East Hudson River surface. There was no any shock wave on the water, nowhere to be seen, even on those redacted in question mark videos. The underground shock wave that has turned 3 towers into dust but not caused even a single wave tsunami-like effect. Oh yeah, try to simulate that with a cup of water and a kitchen table. So as you can see, there is no question mark, so these are not questions, they are statements, affirmative statements. So I don't actually need to answer them because he didn't ask me anything, but I will still comment on it. The problem is that you are cheating yourself, first of all, by claiming that the underground nuclear explosion allegedly has a shock wave. It doesn't, and I explained that many times. Underground nuclear explosion does not have any shock wave. Underground nuclear explosion, instead of a shock wave, has a compression wave. A compression wave cannot cause any tsunami-like effect in the way that Hudson River was, in a situation with the Hudson River positioning and underground structure of the Twin Towers positioning. The all energy of the compression wave of the underground nuclear explosion was in the most part directed towards the tower's foundation that they intend to demolish. And minor parts of this compression wave was directed to other sides of the explosion, but they can't travel far and they cannot cause any tsunami because they are not the shock wave. Very simple. Next question. Tony Meyer asks, you claim that ground zero was specifically used for nuclear explosions prior to 9/11. Yes, and I can confirm that. He continues, I just saw a movie, A Perfect Murder, 1998, where ground zero was used in a completely different context. So how can you still make this claim? Question mark. I just still make this claim because I don't care about the movies. I don't watch movies, first of all. Ground zero story is like this, and it was explained in my book, and if you care to read that, you will get that explanation. Originally, ground zero was not related to nuclear explosions. It was related to zeroing in. So it was a spot on the Earth's surface that was supposed to hit by a missile or an aviation bomb. And it was, I think, used in that sense in the end of 30s and through the 40s and until the early 50s, when the nuclear explosions become common and abundant. So from the early 50s, ground zero was associated only with nuclear and thermonuclear devices, and it was no longer used in the first sense. So in first sense it was used from probably mid 30s or end of 30s and until the early 50s. And from the early 50s the first meaning was completely abandoned, almost the same way as the The adjective gay is no longer used in the original sense, as you probably know, and used only in the special sense in English language. The same way, the ground zero completely lost its original meaning and was used only to describe the hypocenter of a nuclear explosion or its projection on the Earth's surface. Also, it could have been used as a point of planned nuclear explosion. So, for example, it could have mean a mark on the Earth's surface where the nuclear warhead or the free-falling nuclear aviation bomb should have arrived. I mean, planned nuclear explosion or de facto nuclear explosion or its projection in case of underground or above ground nuclear explosion. So the American government started to redefine ground zero, trying to ascribe additional meanings to it, only starting from 2003. So the new dictionaries that contain ground zero with more than one definition, I mean with definitions a part of original nuclear definition, begin to appear only at the, I think, in the second half of 2003, probably maybe in the beginning of 2003, but not even yet in 2002. And in addition to that, American government produced a few fake, backdated dictionaries with enlarged definition of ground zero, backdated by the years 1987 and backdated by the year 1994. For me, I know, I know three dictionaries that contain expanded definition of ground zero, but backdated. So they were printed like in 2003 or maybe 2004, and they were backdated by the years 1987, 1993, 94, 95, and by the year 1994 also. So that is the biggest Merriam-Webster unabridged dictionary of 1994, that is the fake backdated. Random House of 1987 is also fake backdated, and the college one from 1993 and until 1997. All editions from 1993 until 1997 are also fake. So that's all what I can tell you about ground zero. So, but if we talk about the year 2001, there were no yet fake backdated dictionaries, and there were no yet modified definition of ground zero. So there was only nuclear definition. So the hypocenter of a nuclear explosion planned or occurred or its projection onto the Earth's or water surface. So how they can use this, and this is my claim, I stand on it. I claim that the ground zero in relation to the World Trade Center was used twice. One time it was used in 1993 when they used a mini nuke on the underground parking of one of the Twin Towers, which was also a nuclear explosion but mini nuke. So they call it ground zero for the first time, and second time they call it ground zero after the demolition of the buildings during September 11 events. And how it is related to the video that you talk about, I don't know, and I don't really care. So my claim remains the same, I just don't care about this video. Next question. Troy Mayer asks, how it is possible that no radiation was leaked into the groundwater and Geiger counter measurements record nothing today? Question mark. Every other nuclear underground explosion site is still measurable radioactive. How come ground zero isn't? Question mark. First of all, you have to understand that radiation comes from the radioactive materials inside the cavity left by a nuclear explosion. So, if you take care to really extract all potentially radioactive pieces of material from the cavity, take them away, and to bury them somewhere very, very far from the original locations. Let's say that you just throw them in the water somewhere in the deep ocean. There will be no radiation in the original place, because the one that emits radiation are the radioactive materials left in the cavity of the nuclear explosion. So if we talk about the original peaceful or military nuclear tests explosion somewhere else, nobody cares to clean the cavity. So they just leave things as is. So they made a borehole. They detonated the nuclear charge somewhere underground, and they just leave things as is. They don't clean anything. They did not attempt to extract the radioactive materials and to take them away to bury them elsewhere. They just leave them inside. So they naturally emit certain radioactivity, which will subside with the course of time, of course. But yes, you can measure excessive radioactivity, because the materials are still there. But in case of New York, the situation was different, because the American government ordered workers to take out all radioactive materials from the cavities, and they did so. And after they took all radioactive materials from the cavities, they scrubbed the walls, of course, of the cavities, just to make sure that there were nothing radioactive remained there. And after that, they filled the cavities with the concrete. And after that, as you know, they made the artificial lakes, like ponds with the water. So how you can measure radioactivity if there is no radioactive materials there? Very simple. And also don't forget one more thing. Because they also asked me why it didn't leak to the groundwater. It's very easy to explain. Because the nuclear explosions were made in the rock, because the Manhattan has the bedrock made of granite. So the nuclear explosion just evaporated a certain part of granite rock, and after that the radioactive materials remain like in the kind of cauldron caused by the disappearance of the rock. But they are not related or aligned with any water, so they just simply cannot leave the cavity. So they cannot go into the water. So imagine that there was no river, not even a small stream that would go on the such depth through the granite bedrock of Manhattan, and that they can have any leakage. It's very simple. And the only way that the radioactivity could leave the cavities left by the nuclear explosions is upwards. Because the firefighters, as you remember, were tasked with pouring the water into the cavities constantly to try to cool it down faster than it cooled on its own. And of course, when the water hit the hot materials inside the cavity, the water would vaporize. And the vaporized water will be directed upwards. And this vapor will contain some radioactive particles, which was, by the way, inhaled by the gullible ground zero responders working there without any protection. That's why actually they got the cancers of various kinds. And some of these vapors, of course, was ended up on some roads, on some walls, on some other things on ground on ground zero in its immediate vicinity. So the American government actually took good care of it. So all streets, all walls around there were several times cleaned with special chemicals. They were vacuum cleaned with strong vacuum cleaners. And they did it really a lot of times to ensure that there are no radioactive particles of any kind would remain around that area. And when it comes to the radioactive materials inside the cavity, they were physically extracted. So they were just removed from the cavities and just taken away from far from New York, probably maybe to some deep ocean and just thrown there. So how you can get any radioactivity in this case? They just took all the sources of the radioactivity from there. That is the answer. Next question. Andrew Tierna, my former friend. Dimitri Alexeyevich, that's how he called me before. How could monster radiation kill hundreds of thousands of volunteers who were there temporarily, but did not harm the trees in Manhattan, which grew there all the time and could not go anywhere, and are still growing? In Battery Park, for example, which is directly across the street from the scene, and it was simply filled to the ears with dust and ash, question mark. Okay. You just now said that the trees in Battery Park were covered with dust and ash. But the problem is that the dust from the Twin Towers was not radioactive. What was radioactive was the vapor that came from inside the cavities under the rubble. The dust was not radioactive, and ash was not radioactive either. Only the vapor was radioactive. And vapor probably just did not affect the tree. And don't forget also one more thing, that the vapor was carrying alpha particles, not the gamma radiation. And alpha particle, they probably are not harmful for the trees. They are harmful for the live beings who can swallow them or inhale them. So that is the answer for your question. He continues. Even the leaves did not fall. So what? That means the dust and ash did not do any harm to the trees. Very simple. Why they should fall? He continues. Although in the same Chernobyl there was an entire red forest from radiation, and it was cut down and buried with the greatest precaution. I would not mix here the story about Chernobyl, because the Chernobyl was another production of Freemason. So the so-called red forest was not necessarily from radiation. It might have been from some chemicals. So, because we don't know for sure what was the cause of the red forest, we cannot use this argument. Very simple. But if you go to Chernobyl physically, because there are tours there, or you just go to YouTube and you find video on Chernobyl, you just look at the city of Pripyat, that was the living quarter of the workers of the Chernobyl power station, or you look at the power station of itself, and you will find a lot of trees, and some of the trees are very old, definitely were there during the time of the so-called catastrophe of Chernobyl, and they are still alive. You can just find YouTube video and watch yourself. So radiation does not do much with the trees, actually. And as again, because the Chernobyl was a production, there was no much radiation there. So this, you can't use this argument. Again, Andrew Tierna. Why did the perpetrators of 9/11 let you live rather than kill you if you were able to publicly expose them? Question mark. I don't know. I cannot answer this question. Maybe God protects me. Another thing you also have to understand that doesn't make sense killing me after I publish everything. They should have killed me before I publish it. But I took care. You know that I took very serious precaution before publishing the first edition of my book. So I made it very, very seriously. I keep it in complete secret what I'm going to do. And it come absolutely unexpected for them. And when I published that, it was too late to kill me. What's the reason? But anyway, I can't answer this question because I don't know. He continues. I don't understand why the Mossad or the Freemasons are letting you live when you have all this blockbuster information about 9/11, including the granite missile that hit the Pentagon and the nuclear demolition scheme of the World Trade Center. I don't know. I cannot answer this question because I don't know also. But you must be happy that I'm still alive and can answer your questions. If they kill me, then you will have no answer. So just be happy that I'm still alive. A user W, another page shill, asks, not mine, he quotes someone. Where can I get confirmation that metal can turn into powder under the influence of the shock wave of a nuclear explosion? Question mark. Nowhere, because you are cheating yourself to begin with. Because I already told you many times that underground nuclear explosions do not have any so-called shock wave. They don't have shock waves, they don't have air blast wave. So you can't, I can't answer question that contains a wrong presumption. Underground nuclear explosion produces only compression wave, not a shock wave. And the compression wave somehow can turn any kind of material into dust, including metal. It doesn't matter for it what to turn into the dust. And as you can see practically that the Twin Towers, they just were pulverized. I mean almost 90% of their structure was turned into the microscopic dust. So that's what the nuclear explosion does. But again, it has nothing to do with the shock wave. It has to do with the compression wave. He continues. Would the mayor's office give permission for the demolition of buildings with nuclear bombs in the city center because the mayor's office, they are ordinary people who have known in quotation marks, what nuclear bombs and radiation are since childhood? Question mark. I don't know, because I don't know how it was there. But what I know that the actual order to demolish the Twin Towers didn't come from the mayor. If you look at the available videos showing the 9/11 events, you will see that the mayor Rodolph Giuliani was just informed that the towers were going to collapse. He was not the one who ordered that. He just get that information after the order was already passed. So it's not him. And as far as I know, the order to demolish the tower was given by Richard Clark. I study a lot of materials about 9/11. I read a lot of different discussions between American officials that were published, the way they act, the circles of their responsibility, and I found almost proof that the order to press the buttons to actually demolish the towers was issued by Richard Clark, not by the mayor. That's all I can say. And Richard Clark, as you remember, was so-called the counter-terrorism Tsar at that time. He continues. Did ordinary citizens of New York know that there are nuclear charges under the buildings in the center where they were safely lessons in case of their detonations, etc.? Question mark. I don't know. I cannot answer this question because I don't know. But what I know that in the 70s there was a scandal in America because some guy found in a library the blueprint of the nuclear demolition scheme, and he complained to some local newspaper, and that was a real scandal. That I know for sure, but I don't know details. He continues. Why did everyone forget about nuclear charges later? Question mark. I don't know. For example, me, the man, the one you see here in the screen, did not forget it. That's why you have this information now. But why other people forget, I don't know. He continues. In one of the videos, you mentioned that radiation used to be feared differently than it is now, and that it is not so terrible in fact. But at the same time, you say that people who visited ground zero died from radiation sickness. Do you see any inconsistencies? Question mark. No. I just see that the page shills try to put their questions in a way to undermine my credibility. So, but I don't see any inconsistencies because it was explained to me both in the video and in my book that the radiation sickness could be of two different kinds. Acute radiation sickness that could be caused by excessive levels of gamma radiation or neutrons, and chronic radiation sickness that is caused by swallowed or inhaled alpha particles. So there are two very different radiation sickness which has nothing to do with each other, and they have different causes. So the gamma radiation is the most dangerous. It can penetrate even hazmat suit. So hazmat suit doesn't protect from gamma radiation because it's penetrative. But the gamma radiation levels subside quite quickly. So in a few days they will be less and less dangerous. So in a few days you already can work even in the area of powerful nuclear explosions such as 150 kiloton, because the radiation levels of gamma radiations already subsided to acceptable levels. The only thing that you need to do is to measure radiation and not to accumulate accidentally the threshold dose, so that will make you sick immediately. We talk about acute radiation sickness. So in ground zero, no one could get acute radiation sickness except the people who remain there for the first minutes, or first hours immediately after the explosion. Those get acute radiation sickness, but nobody will talk about them because they are all dead probably. So after the American government understood the real radiation levels immediately after the nuclear explosions there, they ordered that the entire lower Manhattan was evacuated and it was sealed off until the next morning. Why? Because they waited when the most dangerous levels of gamma radiation will naturally subside from hundreds of Röntgen per hour to something like tens of Röntgen per hour. And after that, they allowed some medical crews to collect the injured there and some other rescue workers, but under very strict conditions. They could not remain there probably more than half an hour or 1 hour, and they must have been removed, not to overdose. And after another 2-3 days, the restrictions were lowered because the radiation levels by gamma radiation were also lowered, and the people were allowed to work on ground zero with individual dosimeters, and these individual dosimeters must be at the end of each daily shift given to some people who accumulate the total dose. So when they see that someone dose is getting to the dangerous level, so that if that person overcome this level, they will get acute radiation sickness. So they will remove people from ground zero under some pretext and send them to some other location to work. So that is how they implemented hidden radiation control in regard to gamma radiation, which caused acute radiation sickness. But what they did not do is they did not honestly inform ground zero workers that they must be in all the time in respirators, because they cannot inhale or ingest radioactive vapor. But the radioactive vapor contains alpha radiation, and when you inhale such a thing, the alpha radiation will irradiate you from inside the body, and it will cause you different forms of cancer, and that is called chronic radiation sickness. So the paid shills, they try to mix up the things in a way to make me look like stupid or liar, or just try to undermine my credibility by mixing up the two different things: gamma radiation and alpha radiation, and chronic radiation sickness with acute radiation sickness. But it doesn't work with me, because I know how to answer this question. No, I don't see any inconsistency, don't worry. He continues. Why did the power supply did not stop during an underground nuclear explosion? After all, a significant part of the electric cable pass under the Earth's surface, question mark. I think that you are lying, and your question contains a lie. So I can't answer it, because you include lie in an affirmative manner inside your question. So if I try to answer it, that means I confirm that I agree with your lie. But I cannot do that, because in reality the power supply stopped after the underground nuclear explosion. You don't have to doubt it. Maybe not some, maybe not all of it, because some lines were not affected by this nuclear explosion, but in those parts where they were affected, of course it stopped. Don't even doubt it. He continues. After all, as you know, in such a large city, the dungeons are dotted with subway lines, huge galleries of storm drain, as well as subway boarding station with escalator and pedestrian tunnels. If the electromagnetic pulse in a nuclear underground explosion fades very quickly in solid rock, then what prevents the induced current from freely passing through the network of subway tunnels under New York? After all, there are still rails and electrical wiring lines of large cross section, as well as through other underground utilities, instantly disabling all the electric power infrastructure available there, question mark. Have such fact been recorded, question mark? You see how the page shills make their questions. They are clever. They have, how do you call it? Manuals for the page shills, which are made by some people who try to, you know, to twist things and to make the questions that we supposedly cannot answer, and which will make us, I mean me and the people who understand this, what I'm explaining, to look stupid. No, it doesn't work this way, because what is the electromagnetic pulse? When nuclear explosion occurs, it sends instantly to every direction so-called primary radiation. And this primary radiation in 99.5%, 99.5% is represented by X-rays and the remaining 0.5% of it is represented by the rest of the spectrum. All visible spectrum, neutrons, electrons, gamma rays, and the other particles. So electrons, as any other particles, just fly out of the hypocenter of a nuclear explosion to every direction. And of course, these electrons are responsible for electric currents in various conductors. If that electrons hit some metal, they will just cause strong electric current in it. So that effect is called electromagnetic pulse. But the problem is that in underground nuclear explosion, all such particles, including electrons, were stopped by surrounding rock, so they cannot reach any metal. That's why they cannot cause any electric current in any rail or cable or anything like that, because they simply have no chance to reach it, because they were stopped by the rock. That is why there is no electromagnetic pulse in underground nuclear explosion. So I strongly suggest that you contact your superiors and offer them to rewrite your handbook, your manual, I mean, for the page shills, and exclude this question from the next question of his. And where is the project of the building with the section on civil nuclear demolition? Civil nuclear demolition in quotation mark. I don't know. I cannot answer this question because I don't understand it. 2. Where is the approval of the mayor's office in it? Question mark. I don't know. I have never seen it. Because as I told you, my original explanation of the nuclear demolition of the Twin Tower didn't include the claim that building code of New York or other American city requires that the skyscrapers developers must submit a demolition project for the would-be building. I didn't know it by myself. So my original explanation only include my simple claims that I am former officer of the Special Control Service who knew about the nukes under the Twin Towers back in the end of the 80s. And that's it. So all other things are just I learned from the people who contacted me and conveyed me this information. So I have never seen such documents, so I cannot answer your question. How can I say where is the approval of mayor's office on it if I have never seen the original document in the first instance? I just learned about its existence from some American engineers and architects who supplied me this information back in 2007. Number 3. Where is the contractor for drilling the mine and laying the civil nuclear charge? Question mark. Well, this one is, I think, I can answer I can answer this. So in America, there must be an organization that is responsible for the nuclear explosion. So you find this organization, and you can be sure that is the one who was responsible for the technical part of the nuclear demolition of the Twin Towers. That one is very simple. Yeah, this I can answer. But what's the name of organization? I don't know, because I never bothered to study that. But I can assure you that is the same organization that conducts other underground nuclear explosions in the United States. Number 5. Where are the institutes for training engineers in nuclear demolition? Question mark. I don't know. I have never studied about this. But I suggest you that the engineers who are responsible for nuclear explosions, underground nuclear explosions in general, and especially those of them who are responsible for the nuclear explosions with the purpose of to improve mining conditions, like those nuclear explosions that were made to make easy to get some minerals from underground for the mining reasons. I think these kind of engineers, they know more, and they are the closest to those who could implement the nuclear demolition scheme of the buildings. But of course, personally, I don't know them, and I don't know what is the name even of their organization. So if you are so much interested, you can find it by yourself. Number 6. Where is the state acceptance for the quality of work or laying a nuclear charge? Question mark. I don't know. I have never been there. Number 7. But you be sure that there was some commission that accept that. That is no doubt. But I don't know who it was. Number 7. Where are the nuclear charge warranty and service agreement? Question marks. I think they are with the same people who were responsible for the nuclear demolition scheme. I think you can contact Controlled Demolition Inc. company, because that was the company responsible, at least in some part, for this, and you can ask them this question. I think if they really want to answer you, they will answer. Of course, if they don't want to answer, for example, they are bound by a non-disclosure contract, then they will not answer. But you can try. Number 8. Where are the standards for replacing a nuclear charge in terms of storage time? Question mark. I think there must be some organization in the United States responsible for the safekeeping and technical maintenance of the nuclear charges, and they must have all these such standards. But you also have to understand that all these kind of documents are classified, and nobody will publish them for general public. Number 12. I don't know why the questions are some parts are missing, but that's all I have. Number 12. What kind of idiot should you be? So he calls me idiot. Knowing the pathological fear that the creatures have been wiping up an ordinary Americans since the 60s from the nuclear missiles of the terrible USSR stationed nearby in Cuba, when people were terrified to build bunkers on the lawn behind their house to assume that they and their families would live more quietly nearby and work in the building with nuclear charges? Question mark. I don't know. I cannot answer this question. So if you call me an idiot as a part of your question, that means that your question doesn't mean that you need an answer. So you just try to insult me with the question. So I am usually answering questions only in the following cases. First, you have to understand why people have obligation to answer questions. Example. If I claim to have some diploma, let's say that I study something and now I want to have a diploma, and then the condition is that before getting a diploma I have to answer questions of the examiner. I have to pass the exam, and then I cannot refuse answering the question because that's my obligation. I want diploma, so the obligation is to answer questions of the examiner. Okay, so this is one of the conditions when you are obliged to answer questions. The second case is that, like, for example, you are looking for some work, some job. They want to hire you, but they want to check your qualification before hiring you. And then again, you have to You cannot refuse answering their question because they want to examine you. So you can't complain, you have to answer. The third situation is when you want to sell some information. For example, you say, okay, I have this information, I know this, and I want $10 million for that. And the people whom you offer this information, they also have right to examine you because they are going to pay big money. So you can't complain that they ask you some questions and demand from you the answer. But in my situation, you have to understand that I have no obligation answering your question. And when I answer this, it is not because I want to satisfy you, paid shills. I just want to answer it for the interest of normal people who might watch this video. So about you personally, I don't care. And about your shills factory, I don't care either. That is my goodwill. I want to answer your question because I want to show that to the general public that I do not afraid of questions of the paid shills. So that's why I'm answering. But look, in your question, you include insult. So you call me an idiot. So that means you don't need the question. You are not an examiner. And you are not a genuinely interested person. Oh, sorry, I forgot one more thing when I can answer the question. When someone is genuinely interested in my answer. It does not include the examiners or paid shills or the judges or something like that. It means genuine people. So you are not genuine. You are paid shill. Your question contains insult. You don't need an answer. So I will not answer. Simple. Next question, number 13, from the same page shill. Where in history there are examples of the scattering of steel, concrete, furniture, people from any explosion, even if it is of a nuclear type, into carbon or just into powder or dust? Question mark. I don't know. I think that there was no examples prior to that, because I think that the nuclear demolition of the first of the Twin Towers was the first known usage of a nuclear explosion to demolish a building and to transforming it and everything in it into dust. So I didn't know any other such event. I think that was the first one and probably the last. I mean, the demolition of Building 7 was probably the last, because I don't think that such a crazy thing will ever be implemented again. I think it was really the first and really the last. So that is my answer. Where is any documentation for the towers at all? Question mark. I don't know. I'm not the safekeeper of the documentation of the Twin Towers. So if you are really genuinely interested, you might try to get it in some American library or maybe in some organization responsible for the buildings in New York. That I'm not the right person to ask this question. He continues. A technical passport, a commissioning agreement, design documentation with nuclear charges underground, which will simply close all discussions? Question mark. No, I guess that when it comes to the ordinary documentation, you can probably still find their copies in the Department of Buildings of New York. I'm not sure, but I guess so. But when it comes for the documentation for the nuclear demolition scheme with the charges underground, I'm sure that it was destroyed. Because after the disaster it caused and the amount of public attention to this, they must destroy it. So I guess that immediately after 9/11, all the documentation about the nuclear demolition scheme was, maybe it was not destroyed. So there are two options. One option that it was completely destroyed, no copies left. And the other option that it was classified by the top possible level of classification and just kept in some secret location, never to be declassified again. I guess so. So I don't think you have any chance to find it. And also, I'm sure that there was a patent for these things obtained earlier. I think that the patent part was also destroyed or classified and kept in some secret location. He continues. What do you have besides Wikipedia? Question mark. I don't use Wikipedia. I use my knowledge from my military service. As I told you that at the end of the 80s, when I served in the special control service, I knew about, without details, just as a fact, about the emergency nuclear demolition scheme of the Twin Towers of World Trade Center in New York. I don't need any Wikipedia. I know. And by the way, at the end of the 80s, there were no Wikipedia yet. So I knew that maybe more than a quarter of century before the Wikipedia even came to existence. He continues. Do you know the difference between documents and the Wikipedia? Question mark. Of course I know. The fact that the documents have the signatures of those from whom you can call, ask, live nearby and work in the building with nuclear charges? Question mark. I cannot answer this question because I don't understand it. I'm sorry. You train yourself to formulate questions in a proper way so that they could be understood and answered. I cannot understand what you ask. But to all those questions that I understood, I already answered. So this repeating question, I will skip it. I already answered it. Andrew Tierna, my former friend turned enemy, or even paid shield probably, asks, how were Manhattan residents able to drink sewer water after three different 150 kiloton thermonuclear devices exploded in downtown Manhattan? Question mark. I don't know. I'm not the one responsible for their water supply. But I presume that because the explosions were contained in surrounding granite rock, they didn't affect any water in any way. But I'm not sure. Next question. W user asks, not mine, in quotation marks, how far were the towers from each other? Question mark. Oh, I'm not quite sure, but in my estimation, a single, I mean, because the Twin Towers were square, and each wall was about 66 meters, and the distance between them, it looks like just another tower. So it looks like maybe around 60 meters from each other, maybe 65 or something like that. But you can look at the picture and you can look at the map and you can figure it by yourself. So the distance between the two towers was almost like a footprint of a single tower, something like that. He continues. Why did the detonation of the first nuclear charge did not melt the second nuclear charge underground? Because the towers were very close to each other? Question mark. I don't know. Because those engineers who designed the nuclear demolition scheme, they must have taken this into consideration. So when they make their calculation, they just made the right calculation. First. And second, if you bother to watch my video and to read my book, you will know more of it. Because I explained that the nuclear charges were not positioned exactly under the middles of each, I mean, in the middle of the footprint, I mean. Positioning like in the middle of the tower but underground, which would make the distance between them just like maybe 60 or 65 meters. In reality, they were positioned outside of the footprints of the Twin Towers and quite far from each other. So the actual distance between the nuclear charges was almost, by my calculations, like 130 meters. And it is quite far. He continues. The incandescent cavity from the first explosion is 100 meters. How far were the charges from each other? Question mark. Well, first of all, you did not mention the 100 meters is the vertical radius or horizontal radius. I mean diameter. So if you care to read my book and watch my video, you will see that in underground nuclear explosions of this kind, the form of the cavity is not exactly round. It is more or less like an egg with a sharper end facing upwards towards the tower. So if, for example, we imagine that in case of a round form, ideally round form, the diameter should be 100 meters from 150 kiloton in granite. If we squeeze the cavity to make it like an egg form, like oval, the vertical radius would increase. It will be over 100 meters, but the horizontal radius will at the same time decrease. So the horizontal radius was likely between 50 to 60 meters only. Not the radius, diameter. Between 50 to 60 meters. And you ask how far the charges were from each other. In my calculation, they were 130 meters from each other. Maybe from 125 to 135, plus minus, but approximately 130 meters. Next question. Would it be more logical to demolish them in the same time? Question mark. I don't know. I have no idea. Maybe. But I'm not the engineer who designed that, and I'm not the engineer who was exploiting it, and not the one who demolished the buildings. I have no idea. He continues. Why television translation did not stop when the antenna on top of the World Trade Center collapsed? Question mark. I think you are a liar, and you include lie in your question, because it is not true. It stopped the translation. Next, why did the power supply... Wait a minute. I think I already answered this question. He just repeats it. He asks about the electromagnetic pulse. I already answered that, so I will skip it. I just repeat that the paid shills use the question from their handbooks, manuals, shill manuals, where they claim many things, such as why Windows did not broken, why there was electromagnetic pulse. I mean, why there were no electromagnetic pulse, why it must be, and so on. So just to answer again to all those typical shills questions, there were no electromagnetic pulse in underground nuclear explosion. So I suggest you rewrite your handbooks. And when it comes to Windows, Windows cannot be broken because the glass of the Windows was instantly transformed into the dustified structure, same like steel. So steel was after the compression wave traveled by the tower body, it transformed it into some kind of pile of dust. So everything was transformed into dust immediately. Steel was transformed into steel dust, and the glass of Windows was transformed into glass dust. Very simple. Next question, Andrew Tierna again. Dmitri Alexeyevich, if we talk about radiation, then why did the firefighters get sick but still full of radiation from the World Trade Center was transported to American museums and the visitors did not get sick, question mark. Because you don't understand the physical nature of the radiation if you ask this stupid question. Radiation is caused by some radioactive materials. So when the products, the hot products of the nuclear explosion inside the cavities, they of course were highly radioactive, they stood inside the cavity, they could emit radiation only upwards. Especially it was helped by the waters that was poured there by the firefighters. So waters encountering the hot materials, hot radioactive materials, was vaporized, and it was carried with it some radioactive particles upwards. Metal could become radioactive only in case if this metal was subjected by a strong penetrative radiation by neutrons. So let's say that if you detonate a neutron bombs that has a lot of neutrons in its primary radiation, and these neutrons will hit some metal, let's say armor of a tank. This armor will acquire induced radiation. And this induced radiation can continue to radiate for quite a long time, maybe for many years even. So this tank could not be used as a tank anymore because the crew cannot sit inside of it. It will be killed by the radiation that comes from the armor. So if the metal parts of the twin towers were subjected to a front of penetrative radiation of a nuclear explosion, especially like a neutron bombs, of course they would be turned into the radioactive materials of its own. So they will have induced radiation that could continue emit radiation even you bring them to museum. Yes, that is true. But the problem is that those metal parts of the buildings that were found on ground zero, they have never been subjected to the penetrative radiation, because the primary radiation of the nuclear explosion occurred still underground, and all radiation was consumed by granite, by the rock, not by the metal. So the maximum to what these steel beams could have been subjected is to the condensation of the radioactive vapor, because from the cavities the radioactive vapor used to come through all the rubbles, and of course on the way it might leave some radioactive particles on the metal. Yes, that is perfectly understandable, but the American government are not completely stupid. So before placing this kind of things to a museum, they would wash it with a special liquid that is used to deactivate the radioactively contaminated surfaces. So they simply cleaned it before bringing them to a museum. That's why they don't have any radiation. Very simple. Those people who ask this type of question, they just simply don't understand the physical nature of the radiation, first of all. But I hope I answer your question. Next question. W user asks, why do you call the powder the steel powder when it is asbestos concrete powder, while steel powder is gray and heavier? I called it steel powder because all American officials and journalists immediately after the Twin Towers collapse reported that the major part of the steel was transformed into steel dust. So I'm not like you. I believe people. So when I hear that and when I see that, I just believe them that it was a steel powder. That's why I call it steel powder. And there is a video that shows immediately, I will publish it later on my YouTube channel, I will not include it into this video because I will be in a hurry to publish it. But later I will upload another video where you can see the two dusts in the same time, because one of the twin towers was demolished simultaneously with the demolition of the half of the Marriott Hotel. And the Marriott Hotel was made of concrete, and the twin tower was made mostly of steel. In a major part, the powder from the twin towers was a gray color, more or less dark gray. And the powder from the Marriott Hotel was more or less like a light gray, almost white. So in this video you can see like a two clouds of the powder that was distinctly different color, white and dark gray. So you will see that video and you will see the difference between the steel powder and the concrete powder. Эндрю Тиерна спрашивает: If there was a nuclear demolition scheme of the World Trade Center and it occurred, please explain to me why people survived? For example, Will Jimena, or Jimena, I'm not sure what is correct, was buried under the rubble of the World Trade Center for 13 hours before being rescued. I cannot answer this question. Firstly, because I am not sure if it is true or not. It might be a story that was made up to cover up the fact of the nuclear demolition of the World Trade Center, just to cast doubts. Or it might be a miracle. And you know that not all miracles could be rationally explained. Anything can happen. You know, sometimes people fall from the plane from the altitude of 10,000 meters and they hit the ground and they are still alive, so anything can happen. But considering the highest levels of the initial radiation, I mean gamma radiation, immediately after the explosions, and considering high temperatures there that melted cars, because many of you who watched the original footage of 9/11 remember those melted cars. I am not sure that any live being could survive there for 13 hours, because in 13 hours they would accumulate a mortal dose of gamma radiation, maybe like 100 mortal doses. They will absolutely have no chance to survive from the radiation sickness. Not this time, not chronic, the acute one. And secondly, I don't think they could survive for 13 hours in such high temperatures that could melt cars. So I would rather presume that this is just a bullshit story and a lie. But in any case, I cannot answer this question. Again, Andrew Tierna. If there were 3 underground nuclear explosions that occurred in Manhattan, please explain to me why it is impossible for a person not to drive to downtown Manhattan and detect high levels of radiation with a Geiger counter. I think it was possible. I think if those days, like in 2000, at the end of 2001 or even the beginning 2003, if you take a Geiger counter and drive there, I think you will find the radiation. I have no doubt it. But because you didn't care to measure radiation then, you can only you cannot accuse me. You have to accuse yourself. Why I'm stupid, did not measure radiation when it was still possible. So I answer you that yes, surely it was still possible by then, but not anymore. It's too late. I think simply nobody cared to measure radiation then. I mean, from private people, but of course the government agents measured radiation because that was the part of their work. But their measurements are classified. They are not going to publish it. Next question. Troy Mayer. What exactly are you witness of? Did you see the exact plan of nuclear demolition on a piece of paper or just hear from it from somewhere? Question mark. No, I didn't see it on the paper. I just hear it from somewhere. Yes, but the problem is that I hear it not just on the marketplace, but inside the premises of the Special Control Service responsible for the detection of nuclear explosions. Secondly, I heard it not after 9/11, but before 9/11, at the end of the 80s, which makes a big difference. And what I'm witness of, I am witness of I'm witness of prior knowledge of the existence of the nuclear demolition scheme of the World Trade Center that I knew in the end of the 80s. One, and I am a witness of the American government called the place of the nuclear demolition of the World Trade Center Ground Zero. And I am a witness of how American government attempted to modify definition of Ground Zero in the new dictionaries. And I am even witnesses of how the American government attempted to create fake backdated dictionaries with expanded definition of Ground Zero, which were created in only 2003 or 2004, but dated by 1987 or 1994. I'm a witness of quite a few things. Not mentioned that I'm also a witness of how a high-ranking Mossad officials was celebrating 9/11 on the earlier breakfast on 12th of September 2001. I think I knew quite a few things about it. He continues. Please explain in detail how you received this information and how you can be sure that this is not fake. No, the second part of your question, how can I be sure that it is not fake, is because it matches the events. So let's say that if nothing happened, I mean the Twin Towers were not demolished and the place of their demolition was not called Ground Zero. I might even doubt that what I heard in the end of the 80s about the existence of the nuclear demolition scheme of the Twin Towers, maybe I will think, yeah, maybe just something stupid, some stupid fake things, or maybe memory fails me or something like that. But because it coincided that my knowledge from the end of the 80s matches the actual demolition of the Twin Towers, and the place is called Ground Zero, which is a hypocenter of a nuclear explosion, and there are obvious effects of radiation, like chronic radiation sickness of ingullible Ground Zero responders who died en masse after working there or suffering from terminal cancers of various kinds. The common sense suggests that it's not fake. Very simple. And the first part of your question, where you say, please explain in detail how you received this information, I don't want to answer this question, and I already explained why. Because if I answer it, the American officials who are very much interested in that, it will make their life a lot of easier. So I don't want to make their life easier. I want them to be still in doubt and make their life difficult. So you want just to satisfy your curiosity if you were a normal person. But you want to make life of American officials easy, but you are not a normal person because you are a paid shill, because all these questions are mostly from the paid shills, including you. So I think that to answer this question is to make your life easier, and I don't want it. So I will not answer this question. And I already first time explained why. Next question from user W, another paid shill. How could they place 450 kiloton if the law, which doesn't exist to that date, forbids it be more than 150 in one go? And after that he cites the treaty of the Peaceful Nuclear Explosions Treaty. And he cites it in a lying way, so he just omits something. And from his claim it appears that no one could make a group explosion with an aggregate yield exceeding 150 kilotons except in ways that will permit identification of each individual explosion and determination of the yield of each individual explosion in the group in accordance with the provision of Article 4 of and the protocol of the treaty. So in reality, the treaty says like this, that no single peaceful nuclear explosion should exceed 150 kiloton, but in case of group explosion, aggregate yield should not exclude 150 kiloton also, unless it is detectable each explosion in the group individually. But if the explosion if each explosion in the group could be detected individually, then as far as I remember, the permitted yield is 1.5 megaton. So in case of but the shill who asked this question, he omitted this part because he wanted me to look stupid and to undermine my credibility in this way. But it doesn't work with me like that. I know how to answer. So because the nuclear demolition scheme of the World Trade Center contained 3 distinctly different charges, one under the building 1, building 2, and building 7, and they were detonated not simultaneously. They were detonated, after some periods of time, so which makes them individually detectable. So the provision that it is no more than 150 kiloton combined is not applicable in this case, and the applicable is the provision that the combined yield should not exceed 1.5 megaton. So there is no limit, no violation. By the way, a bit earlier, the same shill asked me a question why the twin, not this shill, the other shill, was asking me a question, as you remember a while ago, why the both of the twin towers could not be demolished in the same moment. I mean that why didn't the two explosions under the tower 1 and tower 2 were not possible to make in the same moment, simultaneous? Probably this treaty will answer your question, because if the explosions of under each of the twin towers were 150 kiloton each, and you detonate them simultaneously, it will be the combined yield 300 kiloton. And that was not permitted by the treaty, because the treaty permits maximum aggregated yield for the group explosions, not more than 150 kiloton either, unless each individual explosion is individually detectable. But if you detonate them simultaneously, they will not be individually detectable. That is probably one of the reasons why they cannot be demolished at the same time. And that's why they have to comply, and how they have to comply with this treaty. So I'm not sure, of course, it's just my suggestion. Logic suggests so. So I hope I answer your question. Again, Andrew Tiernas asks, what are the names of military specialists who I can contact to explain to me that no planes hit the World Trade Center and that an aluminium plane cannot penetrate the thick wall of the World Trade Center? Okay, just to understand how stupid is this question, I repeat it again. Please listen carefully. and appreciate the stupidity of the person who asked this question. Again, what are the names of military specialists who I can contact to explain to me that no planes hit the World Trade Center and that an aluminum plane cannot penetrate the thick wall of the World Trade Center? Question mark. So can you appreciate this question? Oh, Andrew, you can contact any specialist, not necessarily a military one. You can contact any plunderer, for example, or any metal worker, or any sergeant in the military who is concerned with the tanks, or any sergeant, or can be also a lieutenant or captain, whatever. But sergeant, I think it should be enough, who is concerned with the planes. And they will explain it to you. You don't even need to go to the Russian military. You can make this request locally with the American military. I think any person who possesses common sense will explain to you that aluminum plane cannot penetrate steel. I hope I answer your question. Next question. W, another shill, asks, how could there be peaceful use of nukes if the treaty wasn't ratified until 1990? Question mark. I don't know. I'm not responsible for ratification of the treaty and for signing it, so I cannot answer your question. Another question. This one is already not paid shield, is a normal user. Vitor Serafim asks, how did you find and how could you confirm that Victor Boot was secretly tied to the 9/11 missile if allegedly his wife denies that fact? Question mark. How did I find it? I find it very simple, because when Victor was arrested in Bangkok and he was tried in the Bangkok criminal court for his extradition to United States, I was the one who was actually helping him in a legal sense. So I was helping him to compose his legal defense. So I was composing various petitions and other documents. And I had the access to his case file. And of course, I was closely related to the Thai lawyer, whom actually I found to help him. And this Thai lawyer had good connections. And sometime from what he talked, I can figure out what they are talking about. So that his case was separated into two parts. A secret part that was concerned with the missile, and the open part that was just for public consumption. Same like the truth about 9/11. There is a public consumption level of the truth and a special truth for officials who sign non-disclosure contract. So the same thing was in Victor Boot case. By various how to say aspects from what was going on, by what the officials say, by what mistakes some Thai public prosecutor made when composing documents, by rumors that came from the Thai Security Council, and by the first questions police asked, I mean not the police, the Americans asked Victor himself after his arrest. This picture could be created. You don't need to ask his wife, because his wife actually knows nothing about it. She doesn't even believe that actually. So if you want to know more about Victor Boot case, you just read my article. that I wrote about him, and with his permission, by the way. I would not dare to write it if he didn't permit me. It was with his permission. So this article exists in English and Russian and many other languages. So just read it and you will get all that information. And why his wife denies that fact? Because she is his wife. Firstly, she didn't even believe it from the first instance. It is too strange for her. And now, after he is released, she would continue to deny it. Why she should confirm that? You have to understand that it is me who pushes the truth about the nuclear terrorism and about the nuclear demolition of the World Trade Center. But Viktor But and his wife, they are not interested in that. And they don't want even to be involved and want some stupid folks like Andrew Tierna disturb them. They are just very unhappy with that. So they just don't want to talk to him and they will deny everything, of course. So you don't try to link Viktor But and his wife to me directly. We are different people. We have different objectives. I want to push the truth about 9/11, but Viktor and his wife just want to have a peaceful life and not to be disturbed by anyone again. So they just don't want to talk about it, and it's understandable. Actually, I too don't want to talk about Viktor But anymore, and for some time I stopped talking to him, talking about him. So I limited myself only to the article that was made with the permission of Viktor. I'm talking about that article that was supposed to be a chapter of my book, but after that I decided not even to include it in my book and just publish it separately. So that was the thing that I got the permission from Viktor, so I did it with the permission. And after that I don't want to have with him anything anymore, and I don't want even to talk about him anymore. So the maximum I can talk only by answering the questions about the old things. Continue. User W asks, who were those engineers which told you about the law of demolition and the scheme, and what reason you have to believe them? In the brackets, simply believe doesn't work, question mark. First of all, I am not a paid shill like you, and I considered myself a decent person. And if someone tells me reasonable thing, and that person has never been caught as a liar before, I simply have no moral right to disbelieve him. As a decent person, I believe him. Again, because I'm not like you, I'm normal. And normal people, they differ from slaves, that they have a privilege. They have to be believed, and they have to believe each other, unless proven otherwise. So you say simply believe doesn't work. It is in your case it doesn't work, but in my case it works. And that makes the difference between humans and slaves. And why I have reason to believe them? Simply because it's logical. Firstly, because I have no reason to disbelieve them, because I have never caught them lie to me before. And secondly, because it's logical and it matches the evidence. That's why I believe them. And who were these engineers? I will not tell you the name. I don't want to tell it to you. Because I don't want your shills factory to know their names. And I don't want American officials also to know their names to cause them any problems. Next question. Vitor Serafim asks, is the Granite missile still valid? Question mark. Well, I don't know, because I don't understand your question, sorry. Or an unnamed torpedo? Question mark. How did your late friend found about this? How did your late friend find about this? Question mark. Is the Kursk submarine, he means, still valid, or other recent named sub If the Kursk is still valid, could they remove the granites from their launchers before 9/11 if the sub only arrived at the port after 9/11? Question mark. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't quite understood your questions, but I'll try to answer. Okay, as far as I know, my late friend learned about granite missiles from Freemasons, I think, and I learned it from him. That's how I actually know that this was particularly the granite missile. Were the missiles removed before or after? Of course, they were removed before. So they were removed immediately after the sinking of Kursk submarine. And when they arrived to the dock in the port after 9/11, of course, the missiles were already not there. And if you bother to read my book, I explain everything in details, and I even published the news articles explaining that. Next question, Alban. Opinion on nuclear power or other means of energy? Question. I'm sorry, I have opinion, but I don't want to talk about the things not related directly to 9/11. Please ask me this question in some other video and I will answer. W user. Why you say all the steel turned into powder when on photos from the place there are big chunks of steel, many tons each? Did you saw the photographs of the World Trade Center collapse place? Question mark. Of course I saw them. I saw photographs and videos, and I saw more photographs than the entire Shills factory, believe me. So I never claimed that all steel turned into dust. I claimed that the major part of steel was turned into dust because the undamaged tops of the twin towers were the main source of the source of the most of still available beams found among the rubbles on ground zero. And as you remember, also there were some surviving corners, a few stores each that were opposite of the spots of the actual detonations of the nuclear charges. It was all again explained in my video and in my book. If you bother reading it or watching my videos, it's all explained. So the part of the tower that was subjected of the crushing or compression wave was transformed into dust, but not all, because some opposite surviving corner were not. They just still remain standing on, and the workers had to cut it down when they loaded them into trucks. And the falling undamaged tops of the tower that were undamaged from the spots of approximately holes made by allegedly by the planes and up, they were not damaged at all. That's why they caused the crushing effect. That's why they scattered the dust when they were crashing down. So I think I answered your question. Again, W asks, where on photos do you see the great crate, he probably means crater, which is of 70 to 100 meters, question mark. These photos were published by Larry Silverstein on his website, and I downloaded them and include them in my book and also in my video. So you can see the approximate size of these cavities. And these cavities were at the time of making photo almost like on two-thirds already filled with concrete. So the workers are seen standing on the new concrete floor. So that means, like, imagine that the cavities was like 100 or maybe even даже, or maybe 120 meters deep. I believe 120. Between 100 and 120. And if you fill it on 2/3 with concrete, that will be just like 40 to 30 meters remains from the concrete floor until the surface, and that's exactly what you see on the photograph. But the horizontal diameter you can estimate from these photographs is about maybe 50 meters. Troy Meyer asks, you claim the Masons trained the CIA. How do you even know the Masons exist in the form you believe them to be? Question mark. It is increasingly seems like you just ramble incoherent nonsense without any evidence. So the second part of this statement is affirmative statement, is not a question, but how I know the Freemasons exist, because I am quite a knowledgeable person and also well educated. So I knew about the Freemasons existence from my childhood, because I learned about the existence from adults when I was a child. That's how I know about them. And about your accusation of what it seems for you, I don't really care. I don't really care about your opinion, I tell you honestly. I answer your question not because I feel any obligation, just because I promised to answer before the anniversary of 9/11, and to just to show my face to the public and to have something to say. It doesn't really mean that I care about your opinion. I really don't care. Next question. W. Why wouldn't you find someone in New York to go and measure the radiation on the place? Question mark. You can ask them on your Telegram or YouTube channel. Nice question from the page Shills again. Firstly, because I don't really care. I'm not interested in measuring radiation in New York. If, for example, I will have a big money, let's say that I measure radiation and get $10 million as a result, I would probably consider that. But why should I do it for free? It is you who are interested to have proof of the nuclear demolition of the World Trade Center. But when it comes to me personally, I do not need that proof, because I know it for sure. I knew it about the existence of the nuclear demolition scheme from my service in the Soviet Special Control Service at the end of the 80s. So that means I knew about it as a matter of fact. I don't need any proof for myself. It is you are the one who needed the proof. So if you want to measure, just go and measure. But I can tell you that it's too late to do that. You should have done it like in 2002, maybe 2003, the latest. Now it is too late. All radiation already subsided, and all sources of radiation were already taken out from there and cleaned everything. Troy Mayer. Oh no, he has no question. Felix asks, hi Dimitri, please talk about directed energy weapons in space. Look, if you want to ask me this question in relation to the ravings of Judy Wood, I can tell you that, again, repeating myself, that she is a shill. She was hired by the US government to muddy waters of the truth. She is just cheating people. She is lying. Okay, so if you ask about the direct energy weapons in space in connection with Judy Wood, that is my answer. She just distributes this nonsense because she want to distract people attention from the fact of the nuclear demolition of the World Trade Center, which is very dangerous for American government. But if you want to talk about directed energy weapons not related to 9/11, in a way not related to 9/11, please, when I will make some video about other things, you ask me this question then. I don't want to mix it. Next question, MG42 to 2024, that's the name of the user, asks, hello Dimitri, what do you think? Are there nuclear warheads among the skyscrapers in this world like the Twin Towers and Building 7? Question mark. I'm sure that all such nuclear demolition schemes of the skyscrapers were destroyed, and all the documentation of it was also destroyed after the 9/11 disaster. You can be very sure that currently none of the skyscraper in the world has such a demolition scheme based on the nuclear charges. But before 9/11, as far as I know, this was already a big business. People already started to make money on that. And the nuclear demolition schemes, a part of the Twin Towers and the Building 7 and the Sears Tower in Chicago and the United Nations building in New York and also some building in Los Angeles. I can't remember which one, the Library Tower or Liberty Tower, just something like that. A part of these buildings, I'm certain, because I have that information from some concerned people who contacted me. There were also nuclear devices to demolish the buildings in three skyscrapers in Japan, in the Petronas Twin Towers in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, and in under a few buildings in the United Arab Emirates. That's I know for sure. But of course, and all of this, of course, were operated by the Americans because the Americans cannot allow their nuclear charges into the hands of other nations. Of course, they were the ones to operate that and to safeguard them. But after the 9/11 disaster, of course, all that such things were quietly removed. That's all I can answer. He continues, I would like to hear your assessment or opinion of the Ukraine-Russia war. How many dead do you think on both sides? In my personal opinion, 575,000 dead from Ukrainians and 175,000 dead for the Russians. Interesting. Yes, I think it is very close to possibly to the truth, but my estimation is higher. I believe that Ukrainians might be between 700 and 900,000 killed, and the Russians, I believe, between 200 and 400 are killed. So I'm sure that not over 400, but I think not less than 200 if we talk about Russian. When we talk about Ukrainians, I believe that the digit is bigger than what you think, maybe 700 to 800,000. But that's my just feeling, okay? I have no proof of it. But I can, if you are interested, I can explain on which grounds I base my estimation. We can make another video talking about Ukraine. Jerry, user, asks, I would like to hear your thoughts on the conflict on Ukraine, changes in global political powers, and what you think will be final result. Okay, let's do like this. I will skip this question, and we will make all such questions separately. there is a group of questions that have no direct relation to 9/11, so I will just mark them and I will answer them in a separate video. So, because I don't want to make this video too long and I don't want to mix different things into it. That is about 9/11. Satisfying page shills asking the so-called dangerous questions, trying to undermine my credibility. But when it comes to the war between Russia and Ukraine, which is in fact not war because they didn't declare it, is unwar, talking in oral language, I will make another video. So if anyone have any questions about the war in Ukraine or whatever related questions, please come to my English Telegram channel and leave these questions under the last post. I will create a post on my English Telegram channel. I will say this is the question. This is to collect questions from interesting people about the war in Ukraine and other political things. And you leave your question there, and then I will try to make separate video answering them. Next question. Adam Smith asks, in one of your videos you mentioned that nuclear weapons were used for infrastructure demolitions and that there was an agreement between the USSR and USA on this subject. Can you give more details on this agreement because it is not mentioned anywhere else? First of all, that not the nuclear weapons were used for infrastructure demolitions. Infrastructure demolitions were... Okay, there was a peaceful use of nuclear explosions because in the 60s especially, nuclear explosions become fashionable. They were not evil yet, not like today. So people believe that they can use the nuclear explosion to create artificial lakes, tunnels, just use them to improve the mining conditions, make gas holders underground and so on. And the Americans also implemented them in the nuclear demolition of the skyscrapers. But this was only the Americans. Russians have never done that. So, first of all, you can't use the word weapons in this sense, because the weapons is a thing that is intended primarily to kill people. That is the weapon. But even the nuclear charge is intended for peaceful usage. You can't call it weapon. It's a nuclear charge, but it is not a nuclear weapon. Yes, there was agreement, but you also have to understand that the peaceful usage of nuclear explosions, I believe, began not even in the 60s, probably in the end of the 50s, or even in the middle of the 50s. But it became very popular in the 60s, and the agreement on that was made only in the 70s. So it was a reaction on that. It's not that the agreement was made first and then the peaceful nuclear explosion started. No, it was the other way around. First, peaceful nuclear explosions were widely used. And then someone decided to bring some order by making an agreement with a treaty. The name of the treaty is commonly known as a Peaceful Nuclear Explosions Treaty. So you can find it in the internet. It is available in Russian and in English. It's not a big issue. It is easy to find them. And if you cannot find them, you leave a question on my Telegram channel, and I will publish a PDF file for you. I have both English and Russian. Next question. Troy Mayer asks, you claim that every explosion with a mushroom cloud is a nuclear one. You are a liar. I never claimed that. You see, the page shield, they like to create question with included lying statement. So by attempting to answer their question, it will automatically mean that I agree with the lie included in the question itself. You see the methods. He continues. This is a simple not true. Every large enough explosion will produce a mushroom cloud. I know it without paid shills, believe me. He continues, just light some gasoline on fire and see for yourself! Exclamation mark. Or watch some gasoline truck explosion on YouTube. Did you make these claims so you could better fit your own narrative of Freemason into your theory? Question mark. In brackets, other examples for non-nuclear explosion with mushroom clouds are the Beirut explosion where fireworks ignited ammonium. So what I can say? I say that you are a liar because you include lie in your first question. And then with all your statements, you just try to undermine my credibility, which is very common for the paid shills. But it will not work with me that way. Andrew Tierno asks, he adds to the above, add into your question the major fireworks explosion in Beirut that had a mushroom cloud. Troy Mayer, but wasn't the Beirut explosion something else? Question mark. I don't know, I didn't study it deep, but when it comes to me, for me it doesn't look like nuclear. I think that was just a chemical explosion. Martin, that's surely the only one of a few genuine people who ask me some question. Because as you see, the other questions are mostly from the paid shills who try to undermine my credibility. Martin, Dimitri, why are so many people who don't seem like they watched the hours-long 9/11 documentary of yours harassing you with such foolish questions? English audience seem to be on a low intellectual level. Who believes in the official 9/11 story anymore? Please don't get infected by their toxicity. Are they maybe paid to harass and just dumb normies? Question mark. Of course, thanks for your support, and of course I cannot get infected by their toxicity because I trained myself to recognize paid shills since early my appearance on the internet. In 2007, 2008, I already encountered shills, and it took for me not so long to understand that they are organized. In fact, the official, not official, but more or less commonly known information, shocking by that time, that the paid shills exist, came to light like in 2011. And from only about 2012, the notion that the paid shill exists become commonly accepted. But when it comes to me personally, I begin to notice paid shills immediately once I appear in the internet, and by the end of 2008, I already could detect and classify paid shill. So how many years already? More than 16 years I deal with them. So I cannot get infected by them. And as you can see, I am not afraid of their questions, and I'm able to easily answer their question. The danger of the paid shills is this: if you are in some chat or some forum discussion, the paid shills could easily get superiority by their numbers. So like 2 or 3 genuine people will be surrounded by maybe 10 or 12 paid shills. And of course they will not accept your arguments because that's not what they want. They will try to mock you, to ask the questions and not hear the answer because they don't care the answer. They will just discuss between themselves to try to mock you. As you can see, the shills behave on my English channels when they are supporting each other and make mockery of the genuine people. And the same way shills behave in forums, in chats. But if the shills simply ask the number of questions, like now I'm reading them and answering them, they can do nothing. Because that's one-way communication. I just read the question and answer it. So that's not the dangerous way to deal with the paid shills. It's not like trying to spend your time exchanging the messages between them and some forum or chat. There the shills are really dangerous. They can create impression that they are genuine and that they are majority. And that is really bad and really dangerous. But when it comes to me, I promise that I will ban them if they are too many. And if they publish too much shilling information. But so far, I ban not so many of them. The most of the paid shills in my Telegram channels are tolerated for a while. Of course, later I will ban them, but so far I'm just collecting questions from them so that I can answer you. I can make video interesting. Andrew Tierna says, I have watched he means mine, 4-hour presentation and read and 4 books that he wrote and was his biggest supporter. It is time for Dmitri Khalezov, in my opinion, to prove his testimony, or I will move on with my life. Okay, dear Andrew. I don't have any feeling that I need to prove anything, because what I said in 2008 and even earlier in 2007 is already enough for people with common sense to understand and to make their own opinion. If someone is stupid enough not to understand it and still need a proof, it only means that the Lord God did not award the common sense to such a person. So the person is simply defective, okay? This is first option. The second option, that this person is the paid shill. So when it comes particularly personally to you, Andrew, I don't believe that you can turn from my supporter, from my former supporter, to such a hater who can ask that questions right from the manual of the paid shills factory. I rather believe that you were bought over. So I believe that the American officials caught you and give you an offer that you couldn't refuse. So I tell you honestly, I believe that you are a paid shill now. Yes, you were originally my supporter, but you have your price, obviously. Next question. Andrew Tierna have many questions. This is a multi-part questions. 1. Are you aware that Mike Harari has ties to the Bilderberg group and smuggled heroin for the globalist family? Question mark. No, I never know anything like that, but what I know that he was smuggling heroin since the Americans took that business from French, because originally heroin was produced in Golden Triangle, and it was originally transported through Saigon in South Vietnam. And originally South Vietnam, as you remember, belonged to French. So that was the French secret services who were doing the heroin business in Saigon. But after that, the Americans came to Saigon, they took the business from French, and then the CIA began to do the business of heroin supply. So they made it in a way that the South Vietnamese aviation used to fly to Golden Triangle and come back to Saigon loaded with heroin. And not many people remember that, but this is fact. they don't want to talk about that any longer, but the people who are a bit older, they still remember that the commander of the South Vietnamese Aviation, Air Force Marshal Nguyen Cao Ky, was officially declared by the United Nations organization as the biggest known drug trader of the 20th century. By the way, he lives in America, and he keeps all his drug money also in American banks. Mike Harari was the deputy of Cao Ky, his right hand. And till American army was stationed in Saigon, Mike Harari was, together with CIA, involved in the heroin business in the capacity of the deputy of Cao Ky. And when Americans left Saigon, Mike Harari moved to Bangkok, and he established the channel to supply heroin through Thai territory, as far as I know. But without details, I mean, that's like a general knowledge. That's all I know. So I can't answer your question directly. Second question. Are you aware that Mike Harari was friendly with Fidel Castro and Cuban intelligence, and they claim they are against the Bilderberg group? Question mark. No, I didn't know about anything about it. Number 3. Are you aware that your friend Daniel Estulin has met Fidel Castro and is a frequent guest on the Alex Jones show, and even had Alex Jones interview Victor Boot? Question mark. Second part of the question, I don't know anything about this, I not follow. First part of the question, whether my friend Daniel Estulin has met Fidel Castro, yes, I know that. And I know, and not only that he met Fidel Castro, he gave Fidel Castro my book about 9/11. The Third Truth of 9/11 was given by Daniel Estulin hand to hand directly to Fidel Castro. That I know for sure. And I know for sure that after that Fidel Castro even tried to do something, trying to move things. I mean, to somehow to push the truth about 9/11 publicly, but he was quickly stopped. That's all I remember. Number 4. Mike Harari had friendly relation with Yakov Kedmi. How do you justify being a fan of Yakov Kedmi when you claim you are fighting the globalists and Yakov Kedmi is friendly with the people you claim to be fighting? Question mark. I never claimed that I am a fan of Yakov Kedmi. I just like some of his ideas and some of his explanations of certain things, but I have never been his fan. So in total, I do not agree with him, because Yakov Kedmi didn't want to talk truth about 9/11, so he is not from my camp. Very simple. Andrew Tierna again. Those questions that I wrote above are for Khalezov to answer in his video. He said in his Russian channel it would be pointless to go to Manhattan because you would measure zero amount of radiation. Correct. It is too late. If you wanted to measure radiation, you should do it in 2001, 2002, the latest 2003. After that, it would be too late. Not only because the radiation level subsided, but simply because they removed physically all the sources of radiation. Andrew Tierna. My point of asking those questions is that Khalezov has accused Alex Jones of being a Masonic operative, but two of Khalezov's friends are promoted by this Masonic operative. Daniel promoted the nuclear demolition scheme of the World Trade Center. So my point is, according to the logic of Khalezov, the Freemasons have promoted the nuclear demolition scheme, which means that Khalezov is a fraud. It's up to you. If you don't want to believe what I say, you understand what I say doesn't need actually any proof, because I just open your eyes on the self-evident things. So the people who never thought about that before, with my help now can think by themselves, as long as they have common sense. So even they found that I'm a fraud, it doesn't change anything. If I point out that the place of the demolition of the Twin Towers is called Ground Zero, and show you all the original American dictionary printed before 9/11, which defines Ground Zero as a hypocenter of a nuclear explosion and nothing else. Or if I point that aluminium plane cannot penetrate steel, that's all it's already done. You can try to discredit me, to insult me, to call me fraud, but it will not change anything. So if I am a fraud, it doesn't mean that the Ground Zero is no longer a place of a nuclear explosion, but a place where burning kerosene melted steel into fluffy microscopic dust. Or if I'm a fraud, it doesn't mean that aluminum planes from now on could penetrate steel. So you understand that the truth I am opening your eyes on is not related to my personality. You can call me fraud, but it will not change anything. I don't even understand why you bother doing that. Yes, but if you want to think that I'm a fraud, that is up to you. I don't really care. Because you are no longer my friend. You are taken off the list of my friends. So I don't care about your opinion anymore. Andrew Tierna again. How could Khalezov get out of the situation if I confronted him with the Ace Baker situation? Question mark. He promoted Ace Baker in his book, and Ace Baker called Khalezov a disinformation agent publicly. Very simple, because I'm not like you. I am a decent and honest person, and I am able to promote even those people who do not believe me and who called me a cheater or disinformation agent. There were in fact two people. One is Simon Shak, a famous author of the videos on the no planes, like September Clues, Fox Out, and so on. He was one of the earliest authors on YouTube who created a nice video presentation proving that there were no planes. And second was Ace Baker, or Ace Baker, I'm not quite sure how to pronounce his title, his surname. I don't know what is real surname or what properly. Okay, Ace Baker, let's say Ace Baker. So Simon Shak and Ace Baker were the people who created very nice, very impressive, very convincing videos proving that there were no planes. And I appreciate their work, and I promoted them. But later I found that either of them call me a disinformation agent because they cannot accept, both of them cannot accept the nuclear demolition of the Twin Towers. But because I'm not like you, Andrew, I don't extend the personal relations or personal feelings to the I mean, I cannot mix. I cannot let my personal feelings influence my judgment on something like that. I'm impartial. Okay, these people can call me bad words. They can hate me. They can call me disinformation agent. But as long as their own work is good and I like it, I will promote it. But I don't really care about them. Okay, it is a pity that each of these men, Simon Schack and Ace Baker, didn't want to believe in the nuclear demolition of the World Trade Center, which I promote. Yes, I'm unhappy with that, and but what can I do? But their videos about planes are still good, so I promote them. So that it means that I am just impartial person who is decent and honest enough not to allow personal feeling to influence my judgment. That's how I answer. Andrew Tierna, do you really believe the Earth is flat? Question mark. No, I don't believe that. I think that's only the freaks who have no common sense can believe in this bullshit. Andrew Tierno, why do you think it is acceptable behavior to publicly call the Russian people to subscribe to someone who has publicly called the Russian people cattle and publicly shared his rotten contempt for them? Question mark. In my opinion, a person who behaves like this is a downright arrogant, disillusioned narcissist. Andrew, I already told you that I removed you from the list of my friends. You are no longer my friend. You are nothing for me. I don't care about your opinion. You can call me narcissist or even homosexual. I don't really care. I don't care about your opinion anymore. So if you try to insult me, it will not work. Because I care only of opinions of my friends or of opinions of people I respect. You are none of them. So you don't need to bother. And not to leave your question without answer, I will answer it. Yes, I call Russian people cattle, and not only Russian people. I think that the most of the people in the world are cattle. They are not humans. Because if they accept 9/11 and they didn't sue the perpetrators in the court and did not attempt to do something in an, I would call it, in out of court settlement, that means they are cattle, and I just despise them. So it doesn't matter whether they are Russian, French, American, or German. They are cattle. Yes, I call them like that, and I believe they are like that. Not all of them, because those people who subscribe to my Telegram and YouTube channel, they are mostly are not cattle. So it's very simple to answer your question. I believe that the people are cattle, and I open a channel that tells truth. So those of them who don't want to be a cattle, they turn on their mind that was probably switched off before and come and listen to my videos or read my messages in the Telegram channel. I don't see any contradiction. And I don't actually ask anybody to subscribe. I just say that if anyone is interested in my videos or in my works and read or watch them unsubscribe, please subscribe. Do me a favor. Because by subscription you show to me that, yeah, I have some more supporters, more people are interested in what I'm doing. It will just boost my interest to continue. But it doesn't mean that I call cattle to subscribe to my channel. It's not. Next question. Troy Mayer. Please publish all the documents you have from the court cases against you! Exclamation mark. We need to know what sentences you received and why! Exclamation mark. This is a matter of being transparent and showing your audience who you really are! Exclamation mark. No, I will not do that because I am not going to entertain paid shills like you and your factory. No, definitely not. I just don't care. It's not that anything secret, I just don't want to entertain you. And when it comes to your claim that I need to be transparent, no, I don't need to. I don't care. Consider me to be not transparent. It's okay for me. Marcelo asks, this, any criminal that doesn't want to share his paperwork is a liar at best and a child molester at worst. Okay, just consider me a child molester, I don't care. Alban asks, hi Dimitri, what is the next big global event planned? Question mark. Or it is hard to say. It's hard to say, but most likely will be another sickness similar to the one that was 3 years ago. Something like I don't know, maybe camel smallpox or some like pigs scarlatina. I don't know what it will be, but they are inventive, you know. They will create some stupid thing like a pig flu or the chicken flu, but this time it maybe will be a crocodile cholera or something like that. I think that is the easier to implement, because you can see how easy they implemented that 3 years ago. So I think that's probably the most reasonable thing you can expect in the nearest future. But could be also something like a big war, but I don't know, because I don't have the how to say, a gift of prediction. I can only use logic and my observations to presume. I think the sickness is the next one. Troy Mayer asks, I would like to remind you that Khalezov doesn't know such things. As I said, the best case scenario is that he is a witness to a hypothetical piece of paper, therefore he doesn't know jack shit about anything else. Exactly, and even worse than that. I didn't even I didn't even see a paper. I just only hear that. So in the premises of the headquarters of the Special Control Service, I got by hearing, without seeing any paper, that under the World Trade Center there was a nuclear demolition scheme. That's it. Without any details. So the rest of details I figure out myself or learn from some good wishers or whistleblowers. Hot Pot Lover 88 asks, hi Dimitri, I'm wondering where will the Masons go after they bankrupt America with all these wars? Okay, with your permission, I will not answer this question here. I will keep it for the next video, because here I want to limit myself only to 9/11. So they ask me about Putin relations with China, about the Ukraine war, about the Beirut explosion. And I believe that all these questions I should not answer here, because I don't want to mix up and don't want to make this video too long. I will mark them and keep them separately for other video. The last question about 9/11. Stefan asks, okay, tell me why no government in the world exposed 9/11 question mark. It was so clearly a fraud. Okay, this one is easy to answer, because you have to understand that globalists, before moving on to make the 9/11 perpetration, figured out how much they control the rest of the world government. And they figured out that they controlled them good enough to move on. So now every country in the world is a member of the so-called United Nations organization. And the United Nations organization, that is the center of the evil in this world. So that is the Freemasonic instrument of globalization. Primarily, this is the tool for depriving of sovereignty of still somehow sovereign states, that is the member of the United Nations. And the United Nations is owned by the Freemason, and they completely control it. And through the United Nations, they can push their agenda on the members of the United Nations. And through the United Nations, they managed to push the prohibition to challenge the 9/11 official version. I would answer this way. So the United Nations is primarily responsible for imposing the prohibition to talk about 9/11 in a way of challenging the official version of the US government to any and every sovereign state that is the member of the United Nations. And the other peoples who are in the government, they have to comply and obey. That is why no government, even the North Korea, even Brazil, even India, even Nigeria, however they can try to present themselves as anti-American, they cannot present themselves as anti-globalist. And you have to remember that 9/11 is not the crime committed of the US government. 9/11 is the crime committed by globalists, as a globalist project. And while some other countries are allowed to bark at America, like Putin government can bark at America, or Fidel Castro government can bark on America, or Iranian government can do so, or Brazilian, they are allowed to criticize America as a US, but they are not allowed to criticize globalists and globalists' projects. But 9/11 is the project of globalists. Very simple. So I answer most of the questions. I answered all questions related to 9/11, except those that I simply don't want to answer for some reason, and I explained to you what are the reasons. I did not miss anything. I did not skip anything. I skipped only questions that are not related directly to 9/11, because I don't want to mix them with that thing. And I will make a separate video with trying to answer these questions. So that will be the end of the video, but I want to add a few more things. Tomorrow is an anniversary of 9/11. So I will publish this video on my YouTube channel. I ask everyone who see that video to support me by subscribing to my YouTube channel, also to my Telegram channel, and to the rest of my channels that will be mentioned at the end of this video in a special list. The same channels will be also listed under the description of this video, and they will also be listed in the first pinned commentary under this video. On my Telegram channel, immediately after I finish recording this video, I will create a special post that you will see by the name of this post will be like collecting questions for my next video in English. I remind you that in Russia I made quite a lot of videos talking about the politics, about sociology, and about other things, about slavery and about many other things, not only about 9/11. And a lot of people are interested. So if anyone want me to do similar things in English, I will do it also. So please, all your questions you leave on my Telegram channel under that post. When I will make next video, I will create a new post for new questions. What else? If anyone want to record an interview with me, by the means of the internet, we can connect via Skype or via Zoom or any other similar program. I am ready to it. You can always contact me and offer to record such a video. The resulting video can be published on your channel or on my channel or both, depending on how we agree. I'm always open for any kind of interview. I can answer any question as long as I know answer. As you can see, I easily answer questions of the shills. And in this case, I mean for today, I would say 95% of the questions were asked by paid shills, not by normal people, because normal people will not ask this kind of questions. And still they were not able to undermine my credibility in any way, and they will never be able to do so. So for talking with the normal people is even easier, and it's more interesting. So anyone who wants such an interview, just call me. You can contact me by WhatsApp or via Telegram channel, in chat or directly via Telegram, and we can discuss that. But better make a call. Don't forget that I live in Bangkok, and the time difference between Bangkok, Thailand, and America is 12 hours. So preferably contact me in the evening or early in the morning, but not in the middle of the night. But if something really urgent, you can contact me even in the middle of the night. So that's it. All I want to say. There is no copyright for my videos. Anyone could take this video and publish it anywhere he wants, providing that he did not cut the ending part of the video showing my channels. And he will publish a reference to my YouTube channel, Telegram channel, and to a couple of other of my channels. Also, I remind anyone who did not watch my new presentation on 9/11, greatly improved. Please watch it. It is prohibited on YouTube, strictly prohibited now. It is also prohibited on Vimeo, on Facebook, and on some other channels, but I published them in Rumble, in BitChute, and in Odyssey, and in Bastyon also. You can subscribe to my channels and watch this video. Links I will publish separately in the second commentary after the first one, and I will publish a single link. If you go by this link, you will find all those links to my video presentation there. So I hope that's it. Thank you very much for your attention, and hope to see you soon. This is the end of the video. Goodbye.